The Still Mind, Part 1. There's a quiet war inside you. It's not a war of noise, but of silence waiting to be heard. A storm beneath the calm surface of your mind, the restless pulse that drives you to keep scrolling, keep planning, keep running. But deep down, a question whispers through the static: what if the very stillness you avoid is the key to everything you seek? You wake up to a world that demands movement, alarms, screens, notifications, conversations that never seem to end. Your brain spins faster than your body can keep up. Yet when you finally stop, when you try to breathe, to pause, the mind resists. It's as if every thought fights to survive in the quiet. This is where meditation begins, not in peace, but in friction. And to understand why that friction exists, you must understand the psychology of attention. Your mind is a machine built for prediction. Every second, billions of neurons try to forecast what's next: the sound of footsteps, the curve of a memory, the taste of fear or excitement. But this endless guessing game has a cost. The constant rehearsal of possibilities becomes noise. Meditation, at its core, is not about escaping that noise. It's about learning to see it clearly, to watch thought rather than drown in it. When you close your eyes and try to meditate, the first thing you meet isn't peace, it's chaos. Your brain lights up with activity, the default mode network, the psychological circuit of self-reference. It's the same network that replays your mistakes at night or imagines the future you haven't lived yet. This is the mind's mirror, always reflecting you, even when you wish to disappear. But as you breathe and return attention to a single point, maybe the air entering your nose, the subtle rhythm of your chest, something begins to shift. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive director, starts to organize the chaos. It's like a conductor taming an orchestra of runaway instruments. The chatter softens, and another system takes over, the salience network, which detects what matters now. This is why a minute of true presence feels different from an hour of wandering thoughts. You are literally changing the balance of power inside your brain. Meditation isn't a single act, it's a psychological retraining. Each breath is a vote for calm focus instead of reactive thought. Each moment of returning, after distraction, after judgment, strengthens the neural circuits of awareness. Over time, the brain rewires. The amygdala, the emotional alarm system, becomes quieter. The insula, the seat of interoception, your ability to sense internal states, becomes sharper. You start to feel before you overthink. In the language of psychology, meditation is exposure therapy to the self. You sit in silence and expose yourself to everything you usually avoid: the boredom, the anxiety, the ache of being alone with your own thoughts. Yet by facing them without judgment, the fear begins to dissolve. You stop flinching from your inner world. Imagine your mind as a lake. On the surface, waves crash, plans, regrets, memories, distractions. But beneath, the water is still. Most people live only on the surface, tossed by waves they can't control. Meditation teaches you to dive beneath, to see the mind not as chaos, but as layered awareness. Science calls this meta-awareness, the ability to notice thought as thought. It's what allows you to step back and say, "Ah, this is anger," or "this is fear," instead of being swallowed by them. In that split second, you gain choice. Psychology calls that moment cognitive diffusion, separating who you are from what you think. That's where freedom begins. The irony is that stillness doesn't mean inaction. Inside stillness, the brain is recalibrating. Activity in the posterior cingulate cortex, the region tied to mind wandering, quiets down, while attention networks strengthen their connections. Focus becomes less forced. You stop fighting for concentration because the mind begins to align with the body's rhythm. You may think meditation is about sitting perfectly still, but the truth is broader. Walking slowly through a park while paying attention to each step, that's meditation. Eating and actually tasting, meditation. Listening to someone without planning your reply, also meditation. What links all these is presence, the psychological act of returning attention to what is. Every return from distraction is a rep at the mental gym. The muscle you're building is metacognition, thinking about thinking. This is what allows you to see patterns before they control you. When you practice this daily, the you behind your thoughts grows stronger, calmer, and less reactive. In the laboratory, neuroscientists watch meditators' brains light up differently. Areas responsible for emotional regulation, like the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, become more connected with the limbic system. The relationship between feeling and control. You. When you practice this daily, the you behind your thoughts grows stronger, calmer, and less reactive. In the laboratory, neuroscientists watch meditators' brains light up differently. Areas responsible for emotional regulation, like the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, become more connected with the limbic system. The relationship between feeling and control improves. It's not suppression, it's integration. Emotions still arise, but they no longer hijack your actions. And something subtler happens, perception itself begins to change. When you focus on breath long enough, time stretches. The past and future fade into a single unfolding moment. That shift, called present-centered awareness, is profoundly therapeutic. Research shows it lowers cortisol, slows heart rate, and stabilizes the autonomic nervous system. But beyond biology, it gives you something rarer, a sense of being here, finally. Yet even knowing all this, you'll resist. The mind doesn't give up control easily. You'll convince yourself you're too busy. Or that sitting still does nothing. But deep down, the avoidance is fear, fear of meeting the parts of yourself you've ignored. Every unfinished thought and unprocessed emotion waits for you in that silence. Meditation is how you open the door. In psychological terms, the resistance you feel is ego preservation. The self thrives on narrative, it needs to keep telling stories to confirm it exists. But when you meditate, the story pauses. The narrator loses its microphone. For a brief moment, the self dissolves into raw perception. This is why beginners often feel restless, even anxious. It's not failure, it's withdrawal. The ego is detoxing from constant stimulation. But stay with it. Breathe. Return again and again. The more you do, the faster you drop in. At first, it might take 10 minutes to quiet the surface. Later, seconds. Neuroscience explains why. Repetition strengthens neural pathways. The brain learns what calm feels like and returns there more easily, just like a muscle remembering its form. You may think progress means meditating longer, but that's a misconception. The goal isn't duration, it's accessibility. When you can access the meditative state quickly, even in the middle of chaos, you've mastered the practice. You've turned meditation from a ritual into a reflex. This shift changes your psychology fundamentally. The baseline noise in your head lowers. You start to perceive emotions as weather, not identity. Anger passes like rain, sadness like fog, each temporary, each manageable. This is emotional intelligence in its purest form, born not from control but from awareness. Meditation also rewires motivation. In everyday life, your brain chases dopamine from novelty, new messages, new likes, new goals. But when you meditate, dopamine patterns stabilize. You find reward not in getting something new, but in not needing to. That quiet satisfaction is powerful, it fuels discipline without pressure. Over time, you may notice your sleep improves. The mind no longer spins at night because it has practiced stillness during the day. Cortisol rhythms stabilize, melatonin rises naturally. You wake clearer, less reactive. The line between waking and resting begins to blur, both become forms of awareness. And yet, there's more. Meditation doesn't just calm, it reveals. As the noise fades, insights surface from below, the subconscious patterns that drive your behavior. You begin to see the subtle fears behind ambition, the hidden craving behind distraction. This is where meditation becomes not just relaxation, but psychological excavation. The mind is layered like an archaeological site. Beneath daily worries lie old narratives, memories, identities, unhealed beliefs. When silence deepens, those layers rise. You may cry, laugh, or feel nothing at all, but the awareness itself is healing. In therapy, this is called integration, the process of bringing unconscious material into conscious light. Meditation is self-directed integration. It's not always comfortable, but it's liberating. Because once you see a pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. You start noticing something profound. Between every thought, there's a gap, a still point. Most people never notice it because their thoughts overlap like constant noise. But once you do, that gap becomes a refuge. Inside it, you're not your past or your plans, your awareness itself. This realization can feel spiritual, but it's also deeply psychological, the moment when self-awareness expands beyond identity. Meditation, then, isn't about escaping reality. It's about returning to it more fully. You become more sensitive to detail, the tone in someone's voice, the warmth of sunlight, the exact texture of the present. Attention becomes love, not emotional, but existential. The act of noticing is connection. You'll realize, too, that stillness is contagious. People around you feel it. Your presence becomes grounding. Conversations slow down, attention deepens. You stop reacting and start responding. That small shift in energy is psychological leadership, calmness as influence. But perhaps the most fascinating discovery is that meditation doesn't require a temple, a mantra, or a mountain. It requires only a decision, to stop running from the moment. You can practice it while washing dishes, driving, or waiting in line. Every ordinary moment is an invitation to awareness. And when awareness becomes habit, life stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like a rhythm.